when a group of runaway slaves would show up at our farm. Sometimes more than a dozen men, women, and children would show up. My job as one of the women was to make sure they had some good food in their belly, a little bit of food packed away, and a handkerchief, and some nice warm clothes. They would need them because they were heading up north to the Free States. My brother, Silas Soule, he would take them about 8 miles over to the neighbor's stone barn, Farmer Grover's barn, and the runaways would hide out there for a few days until it was safe, and then someone else would take them on the next leg of the Underground Railroad, heading on their road to freedom up north. Well, one of the frequent visitors at our farm was John Brown. He was a good friend of my brother, Silas Soule. Oh, John Brown? You haven't heard of him? Why, he is one of the most famous abolitionists of all. And I have to say, he didn't just write and speak about it like my relative, William Lloyd Garrison. He actually took action. Why, John Brown and Silas, they did many adventures together. They did many things that people would consider very illegal. They burned down farmhouses of slaveholders and took their slaves away and brought them to the Underground Railroad. They even killed some slave owners. Well, John Brown, eventually, he was arrested in Harpers Ferry, Virginia, where he tried to commandeer a bunch of rifles that he planned to give to some slaves so that they could revolt from the slaveholders on those big tidewater plantations. My brother Silas tried to get him out of that jail, but he failed, mostly because John Brown refused to be saved, to be rescued from hanging. John Brown said that he was more valuable to the freeing the slave movement as a dead man than he was if he lived. Well, after the war, things calmed down quite a bit, and I married an abolitionist who came to Kansas for the very same reason my folks had, so he could make sure that Kansas went into the Union as a free state. The man I married's name was Sylvester Bemis Prentice, and he was a medical doctor. He had a very profitable medical practice in Georgia. But the bad thing was, he couldn't stand the institution of slavery, so he had to leave. I'm glad that I married him, and I'm very proud to say that he became the first Surgeon General of Kansas Territory. He held that position right through the Civil War. And after the Civil War, he became the first Surgeon General of Kansas Territory and the president of the Kansas Medical Society. And I have to tell you, I stood right by his side through all those things.
Are not pleased to see me here. No! You feel my methods and spirit for fighting are too harsh. Insane! Even though your logic tells you slavery is an evil which must be promptly, thoroughly, and forever eliminated. No! God has told me there can be no victory, no freedom for the slave, short of exterminating those slave masters who refuse to change their evil ways. I have referred a number of them. To St. Peter. We shall see what St. Peter says to you, sir. For one last chance at repentance. Now my work in Kansas Territory is largely done. The Free State forces are triumphing, and we'll be able to control the government. No! Texas, Kansas will be made a state which prohibits slavery. But there's been no lessening of evil in the southern states. I will work to implement my plan to establish an armed fortress in the south, or border state, in which escaped slaves may seek as they prepare for the long, hard journey north to Canada. And upon the return of the freedom, my calling is to work there, to free the slave if necessary by his own hand in a generalized revolt. I, John Brown, am now convinced the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that perhaps, without too much bloodshed, it might be done. I will not cease, nor falter, until my work is done. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible.
Howdy do, y'all. Howdy do. My name is William Fidget. I used to be a slave. They tell me I was born in Jasper County, Missouri. Well, that's where my mom and dad were when they had me. When I was 10 years old, my mama and my papa, they got sold away to a different farm for trying to escape. Any slave that tried to escape was sent down south into the deep south, where no one ever saw them again. It hurt me so bad. It hurt me so bad. I loved my mama and my papa. They were my life. They nurtured me. They loved me. They protected me as much as they could. Soon as they were sold, Mr. Will went and bought some more slaves. Yeah, he did, from down south. Mr. Will had about 50 slaves on his plantation. Well, he told us to call him Massa Will. Massa Will was a mean hombre, that's for sure. He never let us eat what we wanted. We couldn't go where we wanted to go. We couldn't read or write. We didn't know our numbers. He was downright mean. I remember one day I was out picking cotton and I slipped and fell in one of those there gopher holes. That Master Will came up on me like lightning and started slashing me in the back and told me if I don't work hard, that he's going to kill me. He put the fear of God in me. Yes, he did. He put the fear of God in me. Shucks, I worked hard picking that cotton till my hands bled. I worked from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. 365 days a year, they tell me. Well, we did get off for Christmas. We did get off for Christmas. One day, Master Will brought in a slave in chains. And he had tried to run away. Yes, he did. These were the chains that slave, Bobby, was brought back in. They tied a rope to the middle of these chains here and strung Bobby up in this tree. And that's when he got 25 licks from that whip. Kapow! Kapow! By the 5th strike, Bobby was dead, just dangling there. Well, we thought he was dead. He was just unconscious, they tell us. I got so scared, I decided to run. I had heard about this Liberty train in Canada. And they said if I make it to Kansas, there will be folks in lines that would help me get to Canada. I was so scared, I brought these chains with me because I didn't want to, I was going to take them, and if someone caught me, I was going to hide them. I didn't want to have the same thing that happened to Bobby that happened to me. But I found friends in Quindera, all right. There are Native Americans there, Wyandotte people, who helped me. They set me on a path to a place in Kansas called Lawrence. Once in Lawrence, I met this man named Dr. Doe and Joseph Gardner. And they pointed me in the direction of Topeka to a place called the Riches. And I stayed with the Riches for 2 weeks. He sent me out west to a place called Manhattan. And in Manhattan, there was a man by the name of Henry Strong and Charles Emerson Blood who took care of me. They helped me go all the way up to Nebraska City, Nebraska. They took me all the way to Tabor, Iowa. I'll never forget it. Well, we walked the whole way. The whole way. I ain't never owned any shoes. No, slaves didn't have shoes. We would wrap things around our feet. That's what we used for shoes. I seen shoes, but we ain't never had them. And then we went on to Illinois and into Michigan and up into Canada. And they told me when we crossed that big body of water that I is free at last. Free at last. It never felt so good. The air smelled so sweet. I felt confidence. I ain't never known that freedom before. I thank those people. Now that slavery is over, I still have these. I'm thinking about going back down to Tabor, Iowa, and Nebraska City, Nebraska, and Manhattan, and Topeka, and Lawrence, and Quindera in Kansas, and thank all those kind people for helping me have freedom. And I think I'm going to find Massa Will and give him his chains back.